It seems like no matter how much experience you have with machine embroidery, that tension is still a mystery. So in this episode, I'm going to show you what I use to set and test my tensions. So before we get started, as usual, I just want to ask you guys to please like and subscribe if you like this video and you want more videos on machine embroidery. One last thing before we jump in, I also want to remind you guys to stick around to the end because I'm going to show you where you can get your hands on a thread break troubleshooting guide that also includes a video on testing your tension in detail. So a quick overview on tension for those of you who are new to machine embroidery. Basically, all it means is just the tension that your machine is exerting on your thread, and you need to get the proper balance of top thread tension and bobbin thread tension in order for your machine to run smoothly and to get high quality embroidered results. So when I'm referring to top tension in this video, I'm talking about the tensions of the threads that are right up here on the top of your machine. When I refer to bobbin tension, I'm talking about the tension of the bobbin thread, which appears right here in the sewing arm of your machine. So before I set myself up to test my tensions, I'm going to show you guys the process that I take before I go on to the next step, which would be an eye test. Now you guys will learn more about an eye test in the bonus video that I guaranteed you guys at the end of this video. The first step before going into your eye test, I always like to use these two tools to just preset my tensions to get them ready for an eye test. Once I set my tensions with these two tools, then I go in with my eye test in order to do any more fine tuning of the tension. Because I went a little bit ahead of myself and I did speak about an eye test, I want you guys to know what it is before we go ahead and show you how to use these tension gauges. First off, the eye test is just a 1-inch satin column that you stitch on every single needle on your machine. When you flip it over and you see the back of your design, you want your design to have 1/3 top thread on either side and 1/3 bobbin thread down the center. Now keep in mind that the 1/3 rule is just a general rule of thumb that we want to get as close to as possible to make sure that we're not having any issues. As long as your machine is running smoothly and your top of your embroidery design looks great, then you shouldn't have any problems. So enough yapping, I'm gonna go into how this thing works. First off, I got this at an embroidery supply store. Not sure which one it was, but these are about $50, but it's very worth the investment. If you are gonna buy a tension gauge, the best type of tension gauge to buy is your bobbin tension gauge. You don't necessarily need your top one as much, but the top one is only $20, so I think it's worth the investment anyway. Now, if you do have to choose between one or the other, I highly recommend the bobbin tension gauge. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started and show you guys how this thing works. All right, so I have a new bobbin case just right out of the toolbox. It does come in your toolbox if you have a Ricoma embroidery machine. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just grabbing my size L bobbin and I'm gonna go ahead and thread it. If you guys wanna learn how to thread your bobbin, we do have videos on that. I'm not gonna get into it right now, but it's very, very easy. Once my bobbin is threaded, I'm gonna go ahead and insert it into the little area where you insert the bobbin. And you're gonna see there's like a little latch, a little notch, excuse me, and it's gonna click right in. Then you're gonna grab the bobbin thread and you're gonna slide it underneath the first wheel and then over the second wheel. Then you're gonna bring it down into this little notch right here and you're gonna pull gently. And as I'm pulling, you're gonna see that the bobbin tension, I'm not pulling tight. If you pull tight, of course, it's gonna go all the way to the bottom. I just wanted to let you guys know that. I'm pulling very gently. And right now I'm seeing that the bobbin tension is on 300. We want that to be on 200. So I know it's a little bit too tight. This right here has a little clip where I can just cut the thread, so it makes it very convenient. And you don't have to go ahead and remove the bobbin. Instead, you have access to the little screw. It's the larger screw of the two in the bobbin case. And you can just go ahead and turn it counterclockwise with one of these small little flathead screwdrivers. And when you're turning it counterclockwise, you want to make sure you're just taking very small turns. Nothing crazy, just like a small quarter turn, I would say. I'm going to try it one more time. Just make sure you're applying the same pressure. And now it's a little bit under 200, and I think that's a good tension to be at. So I'm going to go ahead and clip it and go ahead and pop it in your machine and see how that performs. So next up, I'm going to tell you guys how you can use your top tension gauge. And like anything else, this isn't always extremely accurate. What I do like to use it for is just to get me started because tension just depends on so many different factors. So if you are going to choose between a tension gauge, like I mentioned before, I would kind of go with a bobbin tension gauge, but this one's also good just to get you started. It is only 20 bucks, so it's worth seeing if it works for you. Now, what I do to make this work, all I have to do is grab the thread from the needle. It needs to be into the needle because remember, you need to test all of the tension. So the needle adds another tension point. So right now, just feeling this tension, I know that my tension is extremely loose. So I know my tension gauge is not going to steer me in that direction. It's kind of gonna give me another like second opinion, right? So the top tension gauge should be anywhere between 120 and 150. So right around the center of this little gauge right here. And just so you know, this is for polyester threads. That is really depends on the type of thread that you're using, but for machine embroidery, we always recommend using 100% polyester thread. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it around this little hook twice. So this tension gauge has a little red line on it. So once I go ahead and pull it, I'm gonna see the red line moving up. Right now, the red line is like on 70. So we know that's way too little tension. And I'm gonna do it again, just to make sure, because you wanna apply around the same pressure. And so all you do is you kind of just pull the thread with the tension gauge. So for adjusting the top tension, for those of you who are new, these are your top tension knobs. I first start off with adjusting these knobs. And then once these are already at a little bit lower, as you can see, these are already kind of low, then I move on to these for more fine tuning. So right now we're pretty close to the tension that we want to be at. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn this, maybe a few turns, and see what that does to my tension now. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and see if that's enough tension to get me started. And it's right at 120. So I'm gonna leave it at that and see how that performs. So now that my top and my bottom tension seems to be right according to the gauge, now I can go ahead and try an eye test. Now, some of you, if you have already, done your tensions already on the machine and you just want this as a quick little second opinion to make sure your tensions are fine, then you can go ahead and start running. And if there are any issues, then you can stop your production and try an eye test. If you're starting from the beginning, I always recommend doing this and then doing an eye test. So there you guys have it. If you have any questions at all about how any of this works, feel free to leave me a comment below and I'll get back to you with an answer. Also, like I promised you guys, I have that free thread break troubleshooting guide for you guys in the description below. It has a bonus video on how to approach your eye test, how to fine tune those tensions. So I highly recommend downloading that today. Alrighty, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe and to join our Facebook group, Embroidery and Custom Apparel Mastery. In there you can chat with me and thousands of other embroiders. You can show off your knowledge or you can ask us any questions because we're all there to help. So please join and thank you for watching. Subscribe and to stick around to the end. Don't give me that face. All right. I'm gonna do it this time. Look, boom. This is the time. I'm gonna get it. No, I can do it.
Oh, are you?
Yes. So before we get started, I want to please remind you guys to like and subscribe and stick around.